Hi, we're Nia and Mary-Anne from Seren Health Coaching. We are metabolic health coaches who are passionate about good metabolic health for everyone. We also love to chat about all things health and to share as much information as we can with people who want to make changes to their lifestyle but aren't quite sure where to start. We're going to release a new episode every Friday where we talk about a different aspect of health. So do subscribe and let us know what you think. We'd also love to know what you're interested in too. So if there's something that you'd like us to have a chat about, do send us a message and we'll do our best to cover it soon.
Yeah, welcome back.
Hello, nice to see you
20
again. Happy New Year.
Yes, happy new year to you, 2025.
Golly, that seems quite futuristic to me.
Yeah, I'm sure we wrote essays at school about it, when we'd all just take tablets and not bother to eat. But anyway, that hasn't quite transpired.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness. Can you
No.
imagine? So
No,
boring.
sure.
Also, I'm really glad that we don't have hover cars. Although they would be quite useful actually for
Hover
you at the
cars.
moment, wouldn't they?
Well, yeah,
You
maybe
could
they're
hover.
coming.
Hover instead of driving on the roads and then you wouldn't have the snow to contend with. That's probably a
Yeah,
good idea.
exactly. Very
Rocket boots.
snowy out there. Beautiful from my window. Absolutely stunning.
Well, I'm just jealous because we've had snow, it didn't settle, and I'm grumpy about it.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. And we've got a really lovely day here. So the sun on the branches, but it will fast melt.
Never mind. Okie dokie. What are we doing today then, Marianne?
Well, all about New Year, it's everywhere, isn't it? Online.
Hmm.
Um, and we talked about this before, but New Year's resolutions and that frenzy of goal setting and doing things better this year. It
Oh,
always
yes.
feels like, a new school year business. You can turn the page and start making some new goals. And it got me thinking about something really interesting I've noticed recently.
Mm. Well, I think we're probably not mad about New Year's resolutions, are we? I mean, we don't like them because they don't have very good sort of backup data when we
No.
talk about people actually doing them. I hate the
Yeah.
fact that people go, "Oh, I failed," and it makes them feel
Yes.
bad,
Yeah.
and oh, it's very depressing.
Yeah, so what I was thinking about is that it often starts with setting these goals, right? So this is the new you, and
Oh
you've
yes, new
set
year,
these
new me.
goals, but that they're not really ours when you think about it.
Okay. So so we've set ourselves a goal, but it doesn't belong to us.
Yes.
Okay, so who does it belong to?
Okay. Well, we often seem to adopt our goals from others. That's what I was thinking. So usually somebody with a business interest. So
Hmm.
we've been fired up by outrageous promises of results. And,
Yep.
you look at the before and after photos that are everywhere at the moment, and
Yep.
generally believing that we don't actually have the answers ourselves when it comes to improving our health.
Mm.
So we now rely on the experts to give us the plans. This is what
Mm.
I was thinking. So everywhere you look in January, there's these promises and testimonials. I've lost
Yeah.
4 stone, changed my life. And I'd love to know, I'd love to follow up some of these because, of course, what we do know is that this often isn't sustainable. I'm not saying this is, a bad thing, but of course, if you want to do the same, the message is you've got to follow this program.
Mm.
And by the way, our program's 30% off if you buy it this week.
Mm.
And I
Funny
mean, I'm
that.
not decrying, this is marketing.
Mm.
And we also continually fed huge amounts of information online by experts in inverted commas that have made
Mm.
us completely, not trust ourselves when it comes to improving our health. So we've sort of lost confidence about making healthy choices at all. That's what I've been thinking about.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's interesting that they are experts, and actually, a lot of them are experts because they did this and it worked for
Yep.
them, which
Yes.
is entirely different to being an actual expert in a particular
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
We're always sort of promised these radical results, aren't we? If you click the link and you pay your money, then you're going to look like this in 6 months. But then the other problem is, I suppose, that there's so much conflicting information. So one expert says you've got to do
Yeah.
this, and the other expert says you've got to do that. And we don't even sit back and even think about it, do we? We just keep adding to the next like big thing. So it's the next meal plan, the next exercise plan,
Mm.
whatever it is that makes you thin, number one, young, number two.
Yeah.
I think fitness probably comes a bit further down because I don't think people
Mm.
care that much about being fit.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but then, the photos and the testimonials, oh, well, you look like this. And
yeah.
I think the worst thing is that we even sort of go back to the same thing that we failed
Yes,
on before because we're
yes.
convinced that it will work this
This
time.
time.
Because,
Mm.
of course, it does for a bit. And of course, it did in the beginning, but there's a reason why you stepped away from it. It was so funny. I was overhearing, not eavesdropping,
Yeah.
something similar just yesterday about people returning
One of the
to
major
previous
slimming
plans.
clinics. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for putting it, yes.
Yeah.
And I
Before
just
you
thought,
say, yeah.
yeah, I won't say, but I just thought, "Oh,
Mm.
interesting. Why are
Mm.
you doing that? What is that doing for you?" So, I think it
Yeah.
does mean that we've lost trust in ourselves to know
Mm.
what's best for us. And
Mm.
one of the main parts of health coaching, isn't it, that we were taught when we
Yes.
did our qualification is that the client knows how to do
Yes,
it for
that's the
themselves. The client
irony.
has the answers.
Yes.
We are there to help them find out what those answers are.
That's the
Fascinating.
irony of it all is we actually do often know ourselves better than we think we do, but we've lost the confidence
Yeah.
to believe that. So we don't really stop and think about it because there's no time. We're just such information gatherers that
Yeah.
we're always on to the next thing. And
Mm.
even as you say, then we've done the same thing multiple times, but you still think it's going to work.
Mm.
And intriguingly, we never reflect on why those plans didn't work before and
Mm.
what's effective for us and why we failed. Because each time we restart something, our motivation's really high. So we ignore all those previous attempts because this time
Yep,
we're
this time's gonna be the
really
one.
we're really going to do this.
We really
And
mean it this time.
yeah, we're going to
Mm.
summon up that willpower that somehow let us down before
Oh,
and we're
magic
gonna
willpower.
gain the transformation that is promised in those
Yeah.
testimonials and photos. I mean, this is how it works.
Same old story, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
why we don't like restricted calorie diets
it
and
is.
yo-yo
Mm,
diets and that great business plan
yeah.
that the slimming industry has. And I just think, we start a new year with all this hope and motivation that this is
Yes,
the year that we're going to do it differently. And of course, okay, follow a restricted calorie meal plan if you want to. It will work for a short term,
it will.
but nobody then goes into you and says, "Well, you can't do this forever, by the way, and you know, it
Mm,
won't work forever. You do need to make some long-term changes. It's not just as simple as do
yeah.
this and then go back to the way you were." And then, the harm that that causes to people because first of all, it
Mm,
takes away your confidence that
yeah,
you did it, but then suddenly you failed. And
yeah.
then, you and I both know and talk about constantly the physical and metabolic consequences,
Yes,
putting people in a worse position than they
which
started
is
in,
really worrying.
which is
Mm,
really absolutely terrifying. I mean, my biggest fear is that somebody will do this for such a long time and repeat it so often that they will need to just live on just hardly anything
yeah,
just to exist. And that's
with
terrifying.
with a lot of muscle mass, but we won't talk about that here because that's a whole nother thing.
Mm, mm.
But let's look at diets, in the sort of context of the school setting, because in a way they are the perfect illustration of how it goes wrong and how we use others to set our goals, and we don't really buy them as
Personalize them.
such.
Mm.
So weight loss diets, of course, are always a hot potato, and they also incredibly big business.
Oh,
And
of
many of
course.
us in the Western world are struggling with maintaining healthy weight. So we know all this. This is a perfect when you're thinking about business plans. I mean, this is perfect. So
Yeah.
basically, if you stop to think about the data for just one moment, you'd realize, and there's lots of it out there, you realize that you might, on average, not be in that 5 or 10% of people who succeed long term at using calorie restriction alone. So some people do,
Mm.
but it's a very small proportion. So that other 90% are going to put
To
the weight
fail.
back. But
Yeah.
not only that, as we know, there's other consequences. And not only that, but people's target weights, which they start with in the new year, often what they weighed as a teenager rather than what's achievable or sustainable weight loss for them now.
Mm.
So that's another, big hot potato. So, ooh, isn't this a fun topic? And
Mm.
right up our street. And we've been talking about this for years.
Uh-huh.
And then there's this, which of the many diets are you going to choose? So this is sort of
Well,
coming past you online. There are many different regimes, aren't they? I bet you can name a few.
oh, I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's Mediterranean, paleo, keto, low carb, carnivore, which always makes me interested, actually, carnivore, because I
Carnivore,
just
yeah. Just
think,
eating meat. Great.
well, and eggs randomly. So yeah, then all the restricted calorie
Yep.
counted diets with all the big wigs, you'll know about those. Then the
Yeah.
really restricted calorie diets,
Yes. The very
um,
restricted
the
calorie
very
diets. Yeah.
restricted ones, which just give you a meal plan and then expect you magically to work out what to do next.
Mm,
Terrifying.
mm.
Then the liquid formula
Yeah.
ones,
Yeah.
which I think just sound like really hard work
Well,
and depressing.
huge to get from that to normal eating. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you've got plant-based, vegan,
Yeah.
low
Yeah.
fat, high protein, sugar free, which, as we know, it's not possible to be completely sugar
No.
free. Whole food, so no ultra processed food.
Yes. Yes.
Juicing, my personal favorite, juicing.
Juicing. That's sort of gone out slightly, but it's still around. Yeah.
Oh, somebody was talking to me about juicing for diabetics. There is an actual book, well, there's more than
Really?
one, a recipe book
Mm.
for juicing for diabetics. And I just thought, oh,
That's
no.
terrifying, isn't it?
Um, and smoothie diets. And of
Yeah.
course, I mean, there's probably more, but I don't even want to go there, to be honest.
And then you get on top of that, you get a load of questions about specific foods, and we'll go into that on the next podcast, I think. But what is dairy healthy or isn't it? Or how many eggs can you eat? Or should you eat red meat?
Mm.
Or is fish highly contaminated and
Or
should you
do
be eating
prawns
that?
raise
And
your cholesterol?
all that.
Um,
Okay.
you know,
So we'll leave
yeah.
that for the next bit. So that's more about specific foods. But I was thinking, if you'd asked my mother
Mm,
all those years ago what constituted a healthy diet, she'd have been very puzzled
mm,
by the whole thing because surely everybody knew fruit, veg, meat, fish, chicken, eggs, dairy, whole grains, homemade desserts and tea time treats in moderation, very few processed foods, no fizzy drinks, and interestingly, when I think about it, most foods in my childhood would have been organic and
mm.
unpasteurized and often grown in the back garden from the local butcher fishmonger. So this is how we grew up. So she'd have been a bit bewildered by what is a healthy diet, but we have become really confused,
Yeah,
which
and I
is
think
not surprising.
we kind of labeled it as a healthy diet as well, and that's a bit tricky to
Yeah,
get your head around it. And I do wonder how we got so lost when
yeah,
we wonder what a
yeah.
healthy diet is and what kind of influences have changed our
Exactly. And then, we've
thinking.
talked about this before. It all started really, I think, basically because experts got involved and there was the
Mm,
public health messages. So I remember, the time, you probably don't, where there was all the talk about heart health and low fat and the beginnings of ultra processed food, but we didn't know
mm,
that's what it was called. So, but I think that's actually when the turning point happened. Before that, people didn't always get enough to eat, and they certainly knew what to eat. And there wasn't a lot
yeah,
of snack stuff, and there wasn't a lot of confectionery around. So
yeah.
it was to do with public health messaging, I think,
I
originally.
think public health messaging never intended to make it
Oh no,
like,
don't think
they were
so.
really trying to come from a good place to
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
we need to just make sure we're eating the right kind of things. But then we then got at, margarines. Now we
Oh
know
yes,
highly
margarines
processed.
was the beginning, wasn't it? Yeah,
And what's it like, one molecule away from plastic or something?
yeah,
It's,
that.
it's oh, disgusting. And also, I never liked margarine. It tastes
No,
disgusting.
who did? It was
Um,
an oily, horrible, funny stuff. Yeah,
yeah. And then the health message was like, you can't have any fats because that
yeah,
will give you heart disease.
yeah,
Skimmed milk, which honestly,
yeah. Who drinks that?
low
Horrible.
fat yogurts. Do you remember that? I don't know if we had this conversation on a podcast or not, but low fat yogurts which had lots of sugar in it or
Mm,
sweeteners,
mm.
and they're really watery, and they're really
Yeah, and
acidic, and
horrible.
they've got that horrible aftertaste, and that's why I thought
Yeah.
I didn't actually like yogurt, but it's not true. I
I
do.
mean,
I just
mostly
don't like that yogurt.
they started with lots of sugar, and then of course they added sweeteners as a because people started to cotton on about the sugar. Anyway, yes,
Mm.
that's how the food industry works. I mean, he's looking for the next trick, really.
Yeah, and then we've just tinkered a bit much, haven't we? We've just added some industrial ingredients to things that never needed it in the first place.
Yeah,
Sweetened cereals, fruit juices, smoothies, jars of
yeah,
processed baby food, all of this
I
stuff.
know that
We don't
really. Think
need
about
that.
that. Oh, yeah, great opportunity for the food industry, really.
Oh, yeah. And then, ready meals,
Oh, the
which
ready
were
meals.
designed to
Yeah,
make our lives easier because we
yeah.
women were going back to work. And those disgusting puddings in the powder form in packets to be
Oh no, they
beaten.
weren't disgusting. I especially like the butterscotch
Oh
one.
my goodness, I hated those.
Did you?
Absolutely hated them.
Discerning
Everybody
palate,
else
obviously.
loved them.
Yeah,
Ugh.
I loved it.
Anyway,
Yeah,
so this was obviously convenience, time and labour
yeah.
savings, smart, but nobody really considered there would be long term
No,
consequences to health, did they? So
no.
fair enough.
And where has this got us all? So I think what we've got is very confused. And
Mm-mm.
we've also got bigger and unhealthier, which is, another bit of this equation. And it does seem
Yeah,
really unfair, doesn't it? Because in many ways, we were all trying to follow the health messages. It wasn't like we were trying to do things that made us unhealthy. We were actually trying to do the
the right
right
thing.
thing
Yeah.
and providing families with margarine that made their heart um, better seemed like a really good idea.
Mm,
So, even more importantly, then, this is what I was thinking, I suppose, all this confusion has resulted in us losing all trust in ourselves, and we rely entirely on others to supply the next plan to fix things. And not
yeah.
only that, even more worrying, I think, is we seem to have actually subbed out our motivation and innate ability to change our behavior. And that's really intrigued me. So, by
Mm,
buying into a plan that promises you results in
yeah.
that way, are you actually saying, I'll also buy the motivation from the plan? It's not really mine, but I'm going to buy it.
Yeah, because it's kind of half-hearted, isn't it? Because
Mm,
you're looking at the before and afters, and you're
yeah.
looking at the amount of weight loss you could lose. Because a lot of these people say, in 12 weeks, you could lose
Yes, you'll
so
be
much of your
this.
body weight.
Yeah.
And so you kind of just make that your target. So, but with no actual realization that you are different, your body works in a different way. What
Yes.
is good for
And
you
your
might not be
behavior
good.
is different too. So
Yeah,
maybe you eat not just because you're hungry, but you eat to fill
emotionally. Yeah.
emotional gaps and all that. So we're all incredibly unique about
Mm.
how we behave and why.
And I suppose that's why we really don't like meal plans because
Mm,
they sort of are a one size fits all, and that's nothing could be further from the truth.
exactly.
We fail to adapt that to meet our own lifestyles and our own habits and how we live or how we work. Some people have to work nights or they have to work longer
Yeah.
hours or they have particularly sedentary jobs or jobs where
Or
they
just
aren't able
budgets
to
and
stop.
availability of
Yeah,
food even and catering for large families and all of that.
there's so much more to it, and I
Yeah.
think that's why it's too simplistic to sort of just say follow a meal plan, you'll get that. And then what happens is we've not truly made the goals our own. We've doubted our
Yeah.
own ability to make the changes. And then, of course, which is, of course, the slimming company's dream,
Yeah.
who do we blame? Or we don't blame them, we blame ourselves.
Exactly. That's what I think so bad is that we make people feel they've failed because the programs obviously worked for other people. So if it
Yeah.
doesn't work long term for them, it's because they're failures. Now, how many failures do you have to go through to lose all your ability to believe in yourself?
Mm,
It doesn't take that many. But
mm.
what we also seem to do is we don't reflect at all, we just keep doing it. We keep going back for some more, and of course, this is a great business plan for the slimming industry, I have to
Mm.
say.
And I think that's probably, where we have to think about
Yeah,
we're changing our mindsets, we're changing
yeah,
what we have to take ourselves seriously as individuals and as unique people who live different lives. What works for me doesn't work for you because
Mm,
we have totally different lives. Um,
absolutely.
and our health priorities for the future are both very, very
Yeah,
different.
they are.
And we have obviously our own stories and our wealth
Yeah.
of experience that we've helped others. But when I see clients, I don't set them the same. I don't set their
No.
goals
I
anyway,
mean,
but
that'd be
they
easy,
don't
wouldn't
set.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be easy, but they don't set the same goals. And sometimes what seems really obvious to me that I think, oh my goodness, you're going to want to change this, they're quite happy with. They want to
Mm,
address something entirely different. And that, of course, is their right. And it's important to kind of support them in whatever that is. And often you
mm.
find that they might come back to that thing that you thought was important
Yeah,
in the
in a different
future.
way. Yeah.
But again, it's really important to kind of see the person as an individual, not as a meal
Mm,
plan or an exercise regime, and actually find the source of the thing that is causing their ill health
yeah, their
or
behavior.
their behavior, and come back to working on
And
that.
isn't that what health coaching in a sort of nab is? That it's a layer above that blueprint. So
Mm,
you could have a Seren blueprint. Do this, and this is going to happen, and you will get those results. And what
yeah.
we've learned in our lives, both personally and professionally, and remember, both of us have years of experience of seeing patients in the health service. So
Yeah.
this is not just, this is not just about health coaching for us. This is also about professional backgrounds and where that blueprint really doesn't work for lots
Mm,
of people. It's a bit like, I don't know, education and, only contemplating the middle of your class rather than either end. We're
mm.
doing the same. We're just saying this blueprint worked for the middle bit.
So it'll
So
work for you.
yeah, and if it doesn't, it's your fault.
Yeah, you have to conform to everybody else's thing. I mean, isn't that what we're all learning about people with neurodivergencies? I mean, we
Yeah,
basically tried for so
that
many
they
years
learn
to pinhole
differently.
them into a
Yeah, yeah.
particular way that they must think. And of course, their superpower is that they think differently.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
isn't that amazing when harnessed in the right way? They can do
I
astonishing
know, and
things.
too late for lots of people, but exactly.
Mm,
So the same in health, what works for one person won't work for another, and particularly around behavior change because we all have quite unique sets of either strengths or weaknesses when it comes to behavior change because
yeah.
we are a product of, enormous tapestry of events and lives.
Well, exactly. And you often uncover when you talk to clients things that have happened in their past that
Yeah,
they didn't even realize were
no,
affecting their
made
present.
any impact.
Yeah, so it's important. So I think maybe the summary from today's podcast is
Yeah,
going to be
yeah,
um, that there is no one size fits all.
no,
That the reason that health coaches exist is because we realize that, and
yeah,
we're fighting against this narrative that you must conform or
yeah,
you won't be healthy.
yeah,
There is more than one way to be healthy,
yeah,
and there are so many different things you can look at. But by making the small changes that fit your life, you are far more likely to succeed than if you keep following
absolutely.
the same thing. Who was it? Einstein who said
Yeah,
the definition of insanity is doing the
yes.
same thing over and over again and
And
expecting different
failing each
results.
time, yeah.
Yeah.
And when
So
you think
please
about it,
don't.
it's so true. And for
Uh,
example, somebody just understanding, and this was true for me, the physiology around, say, the science behind stress-related cortisol issues and
oh,
how
yeah.
you get resulting sugar cravings, for me was really useful because I stopped blaming myself. And
Mm,
ultimately, this might work, but you also have to look at your response to stress. You have to go the layer back and say, okay, so I'm stressed and this is making my cortisol levels go up or
mm,
not sleep as well. But how do I address how I respond to the stress? Or do I have a way of minimizing that stress? So it isn't good enough just to do that blueprint plan at the top. You can just see how this works.
yeah.
Unless you're going down quite a few layers. And I think that's what health coaching offers,
Mm,
more than any blueprint, basically. So,
absolutely. So now we've sold health coaching to you. Come and join us.
Yes. Come and join us. It's
Yes.
around. We don't promise you things we cannot deliver.
Oh, yes. We're not the Royal No, I can't say that. They do deliver.
We don't promise you things we cannot deliver, and we do promise you, though, kind, not non-judgmental steers that
Yeah,
may help you find the best possible version of yourself. I
that's a
mean,
nice
you
little
do have all
slogan.
the tools, that's the point. You
Yeah,
just don't
that's the
know
whole
it.
point.
Mm,
You've got it. We're going to help you find it. And I think
exactly.
ultimately, we can all do something different in 2025 to improve our
Yes.
health. And it all just starts with a little step.
Yes, don't forget it's always a little step. Well, next week, maybe let's talk about what actually constitutes a healthy diet and why it is so difficult, even if you think you know an awful lot about nutrition,
Mm.
to make those choices because there's so many experts out there giving you confusing information.
Even even nutritionists make
Yes,
interesting
exactly.
choices.
Well, of
There's
course. Let's talk next time about how we answer the question. So, what is a healthy diet? Because
yeah,
I
good one.
think that's very confusing for lots of people.
Okie dokie. Right. Well,
Look forward to
um,
talking to you next week.
indeed, indeed. See you next week.
See you
Take care.
soon. Bye.
Bye.